I'm Matthew DeFreitas, and you're in the collaboration space. Keeping your AV systems up to speed can be a real challenge when tech and user needs are evolving rapidly. Today, we're exploring full stack AV, why it's becoming more popular, and how it can help IT ensure its AV systems remain future ready. Joining me to discuss this is Q-SYS's Steve McCary. Steve, welcome to the collaboration space.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks again for joining us. Steve, if you wouldn't mind, could you share a little background on your role at Q-SYS? I know you've joined the podcast before, but
I have.
I'd love to give our listeners another brief intro on you.
Sure. My name is Steve McCary. I am what is known as a platform integration manager here at Q-SYS. What that means is I work on our strategic accounts team, of which AVI-SPL is a major partner on our strategic accounts team. And what that means to us is that we have dedicated account manager that works just as a liaison between Q-SYS and AVI-SPL. And then there are three of us that are platform integration managers. And we work on the technical side of the business and work on national initiatives with AVI-SPL as it relates to reference designs and training initiatives, things like that. So we are a method for anyone at AVI-SPL that has any technical questions to be able to field those, and if not, then help route them to the appropriate person within Q-SYS.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the background that you shared there. I think you'd agree, tech and user needs are evolving rapidly, right?
Yes.
Well, at AVI-SPL, we craft intuitive AV and UC solutions that empower people, streamline collaboration, and adapt to those rapidly evolving needs in tech and for the end user. What's QSYS's approach to this these days?
As most of us are aware, traditionally, AV has always been a little bit behind where IT is and tech as a whole. So what we work on is this concept of a full stack AV platform, whereby that allows us to be more cutting edge, be more current, as well as being more flexible for future optimizations as well. So it really helps us try to correct that lag where AV has been behind pretty much the rest of the tech sector traditionally.
Now, full stack AV, can you take us a bit more behind that concept and what QSYS is doing to help in that area?
Sure, sure. So the idea here is in a traditional AV system or model, you would have these disparate systems and technologies and manufacturers, and even methodologies would be different from piece to piece. I have been in this industry long enough that I remember making a rack of different equipment where you would have compressors and equalizers and limiters and all of these things. And they were probably made by different companies because they, specialized in it or whatever it was. As the DSP became available, we started replacing all these racks of gear with this one box that could do all of it. And it made things much simpler. It was much more streamlined. The full stack AV concept is really the next evolution of that idea,
Hmm.
whereby, up until now, really, you've had one company that makes your DSP, you've had one company that makes your cameras, one that makes your speakers, your control system. I mean, all these parts that we work with on a daily basis, you had to figure out how to make them work together. How were you going to control them? Would they even integrate together? So, where we take the concept of full stack AV is that we want to already provide not only all these pieces of equipment that you need to use, but the underlying infrastructure that allows them to all just work together right out of the box. So, where we have our cores, which is, it's doing all of your DSP functions that you're used to, but it's also your control system processor. It's doing your video routing for you. It's doing all of these things, and it just is. It's a single software solution that we have available so that you can very easily move things from the audio side or the video side, into control and create user interfaces, whether that's on one of our touch panels or whether that's on like an iPad or an Android viewer, whatever it is that you feel like you need to use. That really is what we are going for. And the last stack of full stack AV is this cloud readiness and this cloud adoption,
Mm.
because that's the other piece of the puzzle, right? We have to have everything on site that works. However, we are now in this world where maybe companies don't want to have a team of people to work on these systems. Hopefully we have made these systems, nice and reliable, that people aren't having to go in and work on them all the time. So maybe it doesn't make sense to have somebody full time on every site. So to have this cloud interoperability built into the full stack, now we can help people with remote monitoring and management, and we can really take all this to the next level. Plus, the cloud connectivity allows us to be more flexible more quickly. So it allows for us to be able to put out updates a little bit faster, especially when we're just talking about things that are, software or firmware that are not at a hardware level, which is
Mm.
where we try to operate. Um, it really helps bring all of that together into one cohesive platform, and it makes it really easy, not only for the end user, the person who's actually going to be in the space using the system, but it needs to be easier for the technicians that are serving it or servicing it, the commissioning engineers, the design engineers. Like, everybody wants this to be as easy and as seamless as it can be. So that is where full stack AV really starts to flex its muscles.
So when we think about the full stack experience that you described, you mentioned a cloud management aspect to it. AVI-SPL certainly has its Symphony platform that enables organizations to take a multi-vendor experience and view it in one viewing experience through one
Mhm.
dashboard, essentially. Does the Q-SYS full stack AV capability feed into that? If so, what are
So
the different dynamics that we see with it?
yeah, so ours is called Reflect. It's Q-SYS Reflect. This is our cloud-based monitoring and management platform, and it can be used on its own with your Q-SYS system. However, we have a connector that will put it into Symphony. It allows you to quite painlessly import all of your Q-SYS Reflect devices into your Symphony sites, and then you can go through and, yeah, have tickets created. You can look at usage. You can, create your dashboards like you would do in Symphony. Um, and then there are some other features that are built into Reflect that can really start to help. Some of them are also features that are found in Symphony as well. Things like what we call Space Manager, where we have a map view where you can lay out all your systems. If you're working for a national company and you've got 20 systems scattered across the US, you can see them on a map. You can see what their status is in an overview. You can then drill in on the map and see where they are located in a particular area, and see, again, you can start to drill in on individual system statuses. We can even go so far as to help generate usage reports. We can help generate reliability reports, all of these things, because there was a time when you put in an AV system, and that AV system was probably in there for 15 years. I mean, just until it completely gave out is how people would do it. And then we started to adapt some of the more IT centric concepts of, 5-year life cycles, 7-year life cycles. And that's become much more common in even the AV space, especially as we have transitioned into more IT centric concepts. For example, we have a series of core processors that are Dell servers that
Mhm.
are running our software stack on top of them. So you really start to get into these IT based concepts when you're doing it. So, what we try to do with some of this cloud connectivity is help these end users and decision makers decide which spaces need to get refreshed because everything has to get prioritized and ranked. And so we can help them with things like how often is a space getting used? What are they doing in the space? Like, is it just getting booked for local meetings, but they're never really using any sort of telepresence in there? Or are they holding a UC platform based meeting in there? Are they using a rooms controller or are they using a BYOD? Like we can go through and we can really start to drill down and get them some really good information. And then that is really where you start to see the return is in investment or in the return on investment is in the decision making, in the data, in what we can help people understand about their spaces, not just what we can do in that particular space. I mean, we feel like most people can put together a fairly decently functioning room in a space. Where we feel like we really begin to excel, and especially with our partnership with AVI-SPL, is what we can do on the back end of that space. After you have that space and it's all signed off, what can we do to make your life better just on a day-to-day basis? So when you start to look at we've talked about this internally and we say things a lot. And one of the biggest things is it's not symphony or reflect. It's always why not symphony and reflect? Why not have everything on reflect and then use symphony to then help round out your data aggregation and things like that? Like it really is a nice harmonious process once you get everything up and running.
I love that. And yeah, I certainly, we talk about a unified experience that certainly definitely, it sounds like exactly what you're describing. Um, just taking it now from the needs of today, we certainly talked about how things were lagging behind a little bit, getting them up
Mhm.
to today as far as modernization goes. But at AVI-SPL, we're always thinking about what's next. What's
Mhm.
the problem for tomorrow? What's the next step for the future? And so, for an organization that's considering AV infrastructure improvements and the full stack AV experience, what considerations should be involved when they're looking at full stack AV?
The first thing I would look at is what are the underlying platforms that these AV systems are functioning on. When you look at a system like Q-SYS, we're talking about things like Dell servers, Intel processors. Everything's built on IEEE standards. We're looking at um, what is the underlying hardware? Because at the end of the day, the hardware is really what's going to end up hanging you up. Like for the most part, we can do a lot of things in software, but once we get to the point where we have squeezed every ounce of blood out of the stone, out of a piece of hardware, then that's when you have to start going in and doing full on room refreshes. But one of the things that Q-SYS has always done is focused a lot on getting as much longevity out of the hardware as we can, and putting as much emphasis as we can muster into making changes on the software or firmware level. And we've seen that with things like auto framing in the cameras. When you first bought some of the cameras, they didn't do auto framing, but now they do because that was something that we could just do out of firmware. Things like software based Dante, the hardware that people already owned, all of a sudden we were like, well, you know what? We have figured out how we can do this. So here is software based Dante on these processors. And we really didn't have to do anything on the hardware side to make that happen. So we are constantly trying to find ways to expand the capability of the system using the hardware. Now, at some point, there's always going to need to be a hardware refresh. But if we can keep that to a minimum, I really think that is one of the most important parts of when you're trying to evaluate different AV platforms is to see how much is done in hardware and how much is done in software. The other half is what do they have for back end information and data gathering? Everything right now is about data. It really is driving everything. And the more that we start to integrate, AI and data aggregation and data management and data reporting and all of those things, is the more capable your system is going to have to be. So by using something like Reflect or Symphony that is cloud based and is doing all of that information, it makes it much more flexible. I mean, I've done a ton of work with the folks over at Symphony, and we've even fine-tuned part of how the Q-SYS connector works.
Mhm.
And if it's something that we can make easier on our side, it's a pretty easy change because it's all cloud-based. If it's something on their side, they can make those changes pretty easily. So what it allows us to do is it allows us to be a lot, it allows us to react a lot faster. Once a new product is put out, for example, we just had our Activate, earlier this month, and we announced some new products. And our plan is to have those all be Symphony ready before the products are even out into the marketplace. So rather than trying to be reactive, which is what you have to do if things are mostly hardware based, we're trying to be much more proactive and having things ready to go once we know that the hardware side is ready to keep up.
And proactive management can certainly ensure that an organization's infrastructure really stays future ready longer, kind of what you were alluding to earlier. Uh,
Yeah, these systems are not cheap. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? I mean, this is not chump change that people are putting into these spaces. So they want to know that they're going to get as much bang for their buck as possible. And, these are the ways to help convince them that they are, quite honestly. I mean, is to literally just be able to show them this is the information that we can give you. Not only do you have this space that functions the way you want it to, but we can also help you in your decision making down the line. We can help you with troubleshooting rooms. We can know that a room has an issue before you do. I mean, nobody wants the CEO to go into their C-suite conference room and have them be the one to find out that something isn't working, right? So that's where we can help with that as a way of saying, Symphony or Reflect, we haven't been able to contact this piece of equipment for, a couple of hours. Let's go ahead and flag that and have somebody go check on it before someone else finds out and it turns into a much bigger deal.
Steve, thank you so much for taking me behind the scenes of Full Stack AV and what Q-SYS is doing. I really appreciate your time today. It's been very insightful for me, and I'm sure very insightful for our viewers and listeners.
Well, Matthew, I appreciate it. As always, we absolutely value our partnership with AVI-SPL. We're happy to help in any way that we can. And I look forward to seeing everybody at all the fun local events that I get to go to and even some of the national ones.
We look forward to seeing you there too. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to check out our backlog of content and episodes at our YouTube channel, AVI-SPL Info. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast, The Collaboration Space, on your favorite podcast app. Thank you again, and goodbye for now. For more information, visit avispl.com/QSYS.